Thousands of alien spectators, a cacophony of colors and shapes, filled the tiered seats, their voices a discordant hum of excitement and disdain. The air buzzed with anticipation as the final contenders stepped into the arena. Colonel Tom Reiner, tall and composed in his dark combat suit, walked with measured strides, flanked by two massive Siberian tigers. Their striped fur rippled like liquid silver under the alien light, and their amber eyes gleamed with primal intelligence. The crowd, composed of alien species who prided themselves on their galaxy-spanning superiority, erupted into laughter. "Are these your apex predators, human?" Zarnak, the towering, chitinous Krethar representative, called out. His voice resonated with the metallic twang of contempt, amplified by the arena's sound projectors. "Those things wouldn't last a heartbeat against even our weakest competitors." Tom didn't flinch. He had faced derision before, during humanity's first forays into intergalactic diplomacy, during combat missions on hostile alien worlds, and now here. He merely placed a steady hand on Max's flank, feeling the tiger's muscles tense beneath his touch. Nero, the larger of the two, emitted a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the arena floor. "They might not look like much to you," Tom replied, his voice cutting through the jeers with an edge of steel. "But on Earth, survival isn't about size or venom or whatever Frankenstein experiments you call apex. It's about strategy. It's about heart." The laughter softened, replaced by murmurs of intrigue. Few humans had dared to challenge the Galactic Predator League, an exclusive gathering of species showcasing their deadliest creatures. For the Krethar, who prided themselves on their genetically engineered monstrosities, this event was a symbol of dominance. For Tom, it was a matter of pride and survival. "You misunderstand the stakes, human," Zarnak hissed, his many eyes narrowing. "This isn't just a display. Your planet's status in this galaxy hangs in the balance. If your predators fail, Earth will forfeit its right to preserve them. We will integrate them into our genetic programs for the betterment of the League." Tom's jaw tightened. The thought of Earth's majestic creatures being torn apart and repurposed into soulless killers churned his stomach. Max and Nero, his companions through countless trials, were not tools. They were beings of honor, resilience, and ferocity. "Then we'll win," Tom said simply, his confidence like a blade cutting through Zarnak's smirk. The arena's holographic display flickered, projecting images of the creatures Max and Nero would face. The Krethar's champion, a towering six-legged beast called the Gorvok, dominated the feed. Its bioluminescent skin pulsed with menacing hues of green and blue, its serrated claws capable of slicing through reinforced steel. The crowd roared with approval. "You see, human," Zarnak continued, his mandibles clicking in amusement, "your predators are already outmatched. The Gorvok has ended the lineages of entire planetary ecosystems. Your little kittens will be nothing more than a warm-up meal." Max bared his teeth, a flash of ivory daggers. Nero mirrored the gesture, his growl rising in pitch. Tom's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Let's put it to the test," he said, stepping forward to signal his agreement. The arena shifted, its floor rearranging into a simulated jungle. The holographic terrain was eerily lifelike, with dense foliage, uneven ground, and simulated wildlife scurrying in the shadows. Tom knelt beside his tigers, meeting their gaze. "This isn't just another mission," he murmured, his voice low and steady. "This is for Earth, for everything we've fought to protect. Show them what it means to be predators." Max and Nero responded with a quiet huff, their eyes locked on his. The bond they shared was unspoken but unbreakable, forged over years of training and survival in the most hostile conditions Earth had to offer. Zarnak's voice boomed overhead. "The first challenge is a test of endurance and adaptability. Your predators will face a mid-tier beast, a Torvik's Viperhound. If they fail, the battle ends here. Do you accept, human?" "I do," Tom replied without hesitation. The crowd stilled as the Viperhound was released onto the field. The creature was sleek and reptilian, with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian. It moved with serpentine grace, its elongated jaws dripping with venom that hissed as it hit the ground. Max and Nero crouched low, their instincts kicking in. The viper hound hissed, circling them with predatory intent. The tigers moved in unison, mirroring each other's steps as they closed the distance. The viper hound struck first, lunging at Nero with blinding speed. But Nero sidestepped with feline agility, swiping a massive paw across the creature's flank. The impact sent the viper hound skidding, its venomous fangs snapping in frustration. Max took the opportunity to flank the beast, his powerful jaws clamping onto its tail. The viper hound thrashed, its movements frenzied, but the tigers worked together seamlessly. Nero darted forward, delivering a bone-crushing blow to the creature's spine. Within moments, the viper hound lay motionless, its lifeless body sprawled across the simulated jungle floor. The crowd erupted into a mix of stunned silence and reluctant applause. Tom rose to his feet, his expression unreadable as he observed Zarnak's reaction. Impressive, the Krethar finally admitted, though his tone dripped with reluctance. But that was merely a test. The true challenge lies ahead. Tom inclined his head slightly. Then, let's not keep your champion waiting. As the arena reset, returning to its neutral state, Tom crouched beside his tigers once more. He scratched behind Nero's ears, earning a contented rumble, then patted Max's flank. "Good work, boys," he said softly. "But we're just getting started." The crowd leaned forward in their seats, eager for the next round. The stakes had been set, and the tension in the arena was palpable. Tom stood tall, his resolve unwavering. For Earth, for its predators, and for the bond he shared with Max and Nero, he would see this fight through to the end. The holding chambers beneath the Galactic arena buzzed with artificial light and the faint hum of containment fields. Tom knelt in the corner of the room, his back against the cold metal wall, his hands moving rhythmically as he stroked Max's fur. The tiger lay stretched out, his breathing steady but his muscles taut with lingering tension. Nero paced nearby, his tail flicking in agitation as he surveyed the unfamiliar space. "You've done this before," Tom murmured to Max, his voice low and soothing. "You've faced worse. You just don't know it yet." Max huffed softly, his amber eyes locking with Tom's. It wasn't just comfort Tom was offering. It was a reminder. Back on Earth, the tigers had been raised to hunt and survive in the harshest conditions. Max had once taken down a bear twice his size in a Siberian blizzard, and Nero had cornered a pack of wolves to defend a kill. They were hunters, survivors, and warriors, but this was different. Across the chamber, the containment field shimmered as alien handlers transported a massive predator into its cell. Tom glanced up, his sharp eyes scanning the beast. Its body was sleek, its four muscular limbs ending in talon claws that left gouges in the floor. Its glowing blue eyes scanned the chamber with cold calculation. "That's what you're up against," Tom said, more to himself than to the tigers. He recognized the creature from the preliminary files, an Arcax stalker. It had evolved on a high-gravity world, bred to ambush prey in total darkness. Against any other predator, it would be a death sentence. The door hissed open, and Zarnak's shadow stretched across the chamber as he entered. His mandibles twitched in something between amusement and irritation. "Your creatures impressed the crowd," Zarnak said, his voice dripping with mockery. "But endurance against a viper hound is one thing. Strategy against an Arcax is another." Tom rose to his feet, meeting Zarnak's gaze. "We'll adapt," he said flatly. "That's what we do." Zarnak let out a sharp, clicking laugh. "Adaptation won't save you here, human. The Arcax is bred for perfection. Your predators are relics of an obsolete world." Tom ignored the taunt. He turned back to Nero, who had paused his pacing and now sat watching Zarnak with an unsettling intensity. "You've got no idea what they're capable of," Tom said quietly. When Zarnak left, the chamber fell silent except for the faint growl of the Arcax in its cage. Tom began pacing, his mind working through scenarios. He thought back to Earth, to the countless hours he had spent training Max and Nero. Unlike the alien predators, they weren't designed, they were born. Their strength came not from augmentation, but from years of honing instincts, learning to outwit prey and outlast threats. He crouched beside Nero, running his hand along the tiger's flank. "Remember that canyon, Nero? The one where we flushed out the poachers? Same idea. Funnel it into a choke point. Keep it guessing." Nero let out a low, rumbling growl of agreement, his massive head leaning into Tom's hand. Tom replayed the footage of the Arcax stalker on his wrist console, studying its movements. The creature relied on overwhelming force and speed, its strikes designed to incapacitate with precision. It would be deadly in open terrain. The solution came to him suddenly. It wasn't about meeting the Arcax head-on. It was about controlling the environment. He glanced around the chamber, noting the layout of the arena's holographic simulations. If he could manipulate the terrain, use Max and Nero's agility and teamwork, they might have a chance. Hours passed as Tom worked through the plan, whispering to the tigers, reinforcing their training with subtle commands and gestures. He guided them through mental exercises, mimicking scenarios they might face. He spoke to them as if they understood every word. And in their way, they did. When the next challenge was announced, the chamber filled with the mechanical hum of the arena's transformation. Tom felt the floor shift beneath him as the simulation was loaded. The arena would mimic a dense, rocky jungle, perfect for ambush predators like the Arcax. Before the doors opened, Tom knelt between Max and Nero, gripping their collars briefly. "This isn't about strength," he said. "It's about who sees the opening first. Trust each other. Trust me." The tigers pressed their massive heads against him in response, their breaths warm against his hands. As they stepped into the arena, the simulated jungle unfolded around them. Towering trees stretched skyward, their foliage so dense it cast deep shadows across the uneven terrain. Rocks jutted out of the ground like jagged teeth, creating countless hiding spots for both predator and prey. The crowd roared in anticipation as the containment field released the Arcax. It emerged from the shadows like a wraith, its glowing eyes piercing through the darkness. It moved with terrifying grace, each step silent and deliberate. Tom stayed at the edge of the arena, his presence a calming anchor for the tigers. Max and Nero spread out instinctively, their movements fluid and synchronized. The Arcax lunged first, its claws slicing through the air where Max had been only a moment before. The tiger had darted to the side, using the terrain to his advantage. Nero seized the opening, circling behind the creature and swiping at its flank. The Arcax hissed in pain but recovered instantly, its tail whipping around to force Nero back. It moved like liquid, its limbs coiling and striking with relentless precision. But the tigers were not alone. They were a unit. Max feinted toward the Arcax's head, drawing its attention, while Nero launched a powerful strike from the rear. The creature staggered, its balance momentarily disrupted. Tom's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Push it toward the rocks. Don't let it breathe." The tigers obeyed without hesitation, herding the Arcax toward a cluster of jagged boulders. The creature thrashed and clawed, but the tigers were relentless, their movements calculated and precise. Finally, Max landed a decisive blow, his claws raking across the Arcax's exposed underbelly. Nero followed up with a crushing bite to its hind leg, forcing the creature to the ground. The Arcax let out a guttural screech before collapsing, its luminous eyes dimming as it succumbed to the assault. The arena fell silent for a moment, the crowd stunned into disbelief. Then the cheers began, rising like a tidal wave. Tom stood at the edge of the field, his hands clenched into fists, his heart pounding in his chest. As Max and Nero padded back to his side, their fur streaked with blood, but their heads held high, Tom knelt to meet them. "You did it," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. The simulation dissolved around them, the jungle fading into the cold, sterile walls of the arena. Zarnak's voice echoed overhead, strained with reluctant acknowledgement. "The human predators advance to the final challenge," he announced. "But they won't survive what's next." Tom met Zarnak's gaze across the arena, his expression unyielding. "We'll see about that." As the chamber doors closed behind him, Tom couldn't help but feel the weight of what was coming. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving Earth's worth in a galaxy that had dismissed it as insignificant. And for Max and Nero, it was about showing the galaxy what true predators were made of. The arena's atmosphere had shifted. The once jubilant roars of the crowd were now laced with an undercurrent of tension. The announcer's voice, booming and theatrical, echoed across the vast chamber. "Prepare yourselves for the ultimate test of supremacy." The human predators faced their deadliest foe yet, the hybrid behemoth, Umbra Prime. Tom stood at the edge of the field, Max and Nero at his sides. The tigers were battered but resolute, their powerful forms tense with anticipation. Umbra Prime was no ordinary opponent. Bred in the labs of the Galactic Council, it combined the most lethal traits of the galaxy's apex predators. Its sheer size was daunting, but Tom knew the real threat lay in its unpredictability. As the containment field shimmered and fell, the behemoth stepped forward. Umbra Prime was a nightmare-given form. Its massive, sinewy body rippled with muscle, its 6 legs granting it an unnatural agility. Scaled armor covered its torso, while its serrated mandibles clicked with anticipation. Its 4 glowing eyes scanned the arena with an intelligence that sent a chill down Tom's spine. Max growled low, his hackles raised, while Nero let out a sharp snarl, his muscles coiling like springs. Tom knelt between them, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Focus. Watch for openings. We do this together." The arena transformed into a new simulation, a volcanic landscape of jagged rocks and molten rivers. The air shimmered with heat, the ground treacherous underfoot. Umbra Prime wasted no time, launching itself toward the trio with terrifying speed. "Split," Tom commanded, and the tigers moved as one, darting in opposite directions. Umbra Prime's massive claws struck the spot they had vacated, splintering the rock into shards. It roared in frustration, a guttural sound that reverberated through the arena. Max took advantage of its distraction, circling to its left, while Nero darted to its right. Tom sprinted to higher ground, his eyes never leaving the battlefield. From above, he could guide the tigers, using the terrain to their advantage. "Max, keep it moving." "Nero, target its flank." The tigers obeyed without hesitation. Nero feinted toward Umbra Prime's hind leg, drawing its attention, while Max leaped onto a nearby rock, positioning himself for a strike. The behemoth twisted, its tail lashing out like a whip. Nero narrowly avoided the blow, his agility saving him from a crushing impact. Tom clenched his fists, his mind racing. Umbra Prime's movements were precise, almost calculated. It wasn't just reacting, it was strategizing. Max roared and lunged, his claws raking across the behemoth's armored side. The attack barely scratched the surface, but it enraged the creature. It turned on Max, its mandibles snapping viciously. Max darted back, leading it toward a cluster of boulders. "Nero, now!" Tom shouted. Nero sprang into action, launching himself onto the creature's exposed hind leg. His powerful jaws clamped down, eliciting a roar of pain from Umbra Prime. The behemoth reared up, shaking violently, but Nero held on, his teeth digging deeper. Umbra Prime twisted, slamming its body into a rock face to dislodge Nero. The impact sent the tiger sprawling, but he recovered quickly, shaking off the blow. Tom's heart pounded as he watched Nero stagger slightly before regaining his stance. "Stay sharp," Tom called out, his voice cutting through the chaos. The behemoth charged at Max, who led it toward a molten river. The tiger stopped abruptly, pivoting to face the creature as it barreled toward him. Umbra Prime hesitated, its instincts warning it of the danger. Tom saw the opening and seized it. "Max, hold your ground." Nero, flank it, Max growled, his massive form crouching low as if daring the behemoth to come closer. Umbra Prime lunged, its claws swiping at Max. At the last moment, Max darted to the side, leaving the creature off balance. Nero struck from behind, his claws finding a gap in the behemoth's armor. The creature roared in fury, twisting to face its attacker. Tom took a deep breath, his mind calculating their next move. Keep it moving. Don't let it settle. Max and Nero worked in perfect synchronization, their attacks relentless. They exploited every mistake, every hesitation, forcing Umbra Prime to expend its energy. But Tom knew they couldn't keep this pace forever. The volcanic landscape offered one final opportunity. Tom's eyes locked onto a precarious ledge hanging above a molten river. If they could lure the behemoth there, it might be enough to end the fight. Max, Nero, with me, Tom called, sprinting toward the ledge. The tigers followed, their trust in him absolute. Umbra Prime roared and gave chase, its massive form crashing through the rocky terrain. As they reached the ledge, Tom turned to face the creature, his stance unwavering. "Come on, you bastard," he muttered under his breath. Max and Nero flanked the behemoth, their growls echoing through the arena. Umbra Prime hesitated, its glowing eyes flicking between the tigers and the human. "Now!" Tom shouted. Max leaped onto the creature's back, his claws tearing at its exposed neck. Nero lunged for its legs, forcing it to stumble. The behemoth roared in agony, its movements becoming frantic. Tom seized the moment, grabbing a shard of jagged rock from the ground. He sprinted toward the creature, his eyes blazing with determination. With a primal shout, he drove the shard into the gap in its armor, just above its heart. Umbra Prime let out a final, deafening roar as its massive body collapsed. The ledge cracked under its weight, and the behemoth slid into the molten river below. The arena shook with the force of its demise. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices a deafening wave of awe and disbelief. Tom stood over the edge, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. Max and Nero limped to his side, their fur singed but their spirits unbroken. He knelt between them, his hands resting on their heads. "You did it," he said softly, his voice filled with pride. As the simulation dissolved, the arena returned to its sterile, metallic state. Zarnak appeared once more, his expression a mixture of anger and begrudging respect. "The human predators have triumphed," he announced. "But this victory changes nothing." Tom met Zarnak's gaze, his eyes cold and unyielding. "It changes everything," he replied. The chamber doors slid shut behind them, leaving the crowd's cheers to fade into the background. Tom knew this wasn't the end. The Galactic Council wouldn't take their defeat lightly. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of triumph. Max and Nero had proven themselves not just as Earth's predators, but as symbols of humanity's resilience. Together, they had faced the galaxy's worst and won. The aftermath of the battle reverberated across the galaxy. News of the human triumph spread like wildfire, and with it came a mixture of awe and apprehension. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of Earth's capabilities, now found themselves grappling with a newfound respect for the species they had underestimated. Tom walked alongside Max and Nero through the corridors of the arena's preparation chambers. The metallic walls seemed less imposing now, the weight of their victory making the space feel strangely small. Both tigers bore the scars of their struggle, but their eyes remained sharp, their strides purposeful. As they approached the debriefing chamber, Zarnak stood waiting. The alien's expression was inscrutable, his usual air of superiority tempered by something else, perhaps grudging admiration. "You've proven what I didn't think possible," Zarnak admitted, his voice devoid of its usual venom. "But don't mistake this for acceptance. Your kind remains an anomaly." Tom stopped, his gaze unwavering. "An anomaly that just defeated your greatest predator," he replied. Zarnak's mandibles twitched, a sign of irritation, but he said nothing further. Instead, he gestured for Tom to follow him. They entered a vast chamber, its walls lined with holographic projections of the battle. Representatives from various alien species watched intently, their murmurs filling the room. Tom felt the weight of their stares, but he stood tall, flanked by Max and Nero. The Tigers seemed to sense the significance of the moment, their postures regal despite their injuries. One of the representatives, a tall being with translucent skin that shimmered like water, stepped forward. "Your performance today has unsettled many," it said, its voice melodic yet sharp. "But it has also taught us a lesson we cannot ignore." "And what lesson is that?" Tom asked, his tone even. "That strength does not always come from size or numbers. It comes from unity, strategy, and the bond between allies," the alien replied. The room fell silent as the representatives processed the words. Tom glanced at Max and Nero, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. They had always known that their strength lay in their connection, in the trust they had built through years of training and hardship. Zarnak cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "The Council will deliberate on the implications of today's event. For now, you are free to return to your vessel." Tom gave a curt nod, turning to leave. But as he reached the door, another representative called out, "Wait!" Tom paused, glancing over his shoulder. The speaker was a stout creature with scaled skin and a deep, resonant voice. "You've earned more than our curiosity, human. You've earned our respect. Perhaps there is more we can learn from each other." Tom considered the words, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps," he said finally, before stepping out of the chamber with Max and Nero by his side. Back aboard their ship, Tom sat in the small med bay, carefully tending to the Tiger's wounds. The sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with the low hum of the ship's engines. Max flinched slightly as Tom cleaned a particularly deep gash, but he didn't pull away. "You've been through worse," Tom murmured, his tone light. Nero, lying on the floor nearby, let out a soft chuff as if in agreement. The ship's AI, a calm and measured voice named Argus, interrupted the moment. "Commander Tom, you have an incoming transmission from Earth." "Patch it through," Tom said, setting the med kit aside. A holographic screen flickered to life, displaying the face of General Marcus Steele, a grizzled veteran with a sharp gaze. "Tom," Marcus greeted, his voice gruff but warm, "you've caused quite a stir out here." "Wasn't exactly my intention," Tom replied, leaning against the counter. "Well, intention or not, you've put humanity on the map. The Council doesn't see us as prey anymore. They see us as equals, or at least something close to it." Tom nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And what happens now?" Marcus's gaze hardened. "Now we prepare. Respect is a step, but it's not the end game. The galaxy is watching us, and not everyone will take kindly to what you've done. Some will want to challenge us, to prove this was a fluke." Tom sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then we'll be ready. Max, Nero, and I didn't come this far just to back down now." The general's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's what I wanted to hear. Keep your crew sharp, Tom. Earth is counting on you." The transmission ended, leaving Tom alone with his thoughts. He glanced at the Tigers, their forms relaxed but alert. They were more than predators. They were partners, symbols of humanity's resilience and adaptability. In the quiet of the ship's observation deck, Tom stood before the panoramic view of the stars. Max and Nero lay at his feet, their breathing steady, a comforting rhythm in the stillness. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, the trials, the losses, the victories. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through brute force alone, but through the unbreakable bonds that defined them. As the ship drifted through the void, Tom's resolve solidified. The road ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it together. Max let out a soft growl, as if sensing his thoughts. Tom crouched beside him, running a hand through the tiger's fur. "We've got a long way to go, buddy," he said softly. Nero stretched lazily, his golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. Tom smiled, his gaze returning to the stars. Whatever came next, they would face it head-on with courage, unity, and the unyielding spirit that had carried them this far.